If I can't keep my head held high enough, I'll just speak love and watch the smiles come, bring my spirits up. There's some shit I like to fix, but I still know that I'm blessed.
Welcome back to my coverage of the Kristin Smart case. Now that we have Paul's guilty verdict and Ruben's not guilty verdict, the shift/focus is back to finding Kristin. I wish I knew where to search for her. I would most definitely spend my free time looking for Kristin, but there's no targeted areas known. And where would we start? We have searched the Wasna area, which has long been a suspected place for Kristin's remains, both at the beginning under the skate ramp possibly, and later on possibly scattered after moved from under Ruben's deck. The area out there is so vast and rugged, and a lot of private property as well. There have been countless searches by foot, by drone, and by other means over the last 26 years and counting. Areas around Cal Poly and Wasna and other mountainous areas of SLO County have been searched and continue to be searched. There's been multiple digs over the years. In 2016, they did the Cal Poly dig on the back hillside there. There was limited digs at Susan's Branch Street home. And of course, during the trial, the dig under Ruben's deck was covered in great detail, right down to the soil stainage and fibers located in the clandestine grave as described by the prosecution. There was also hints that alluded to other digs in Wasna, some large, some small, and other areas that are unnamed in San Luis Obispo County were mentioned during the court proceedings. The local landfill, Cold Canyon, was also searched, and they actually excavated over 8,000 cubic yards at the landfill when they searched for her remains. I'm sure over 95% of us have listened to Chris Lambert's podcast. In the podcast, they featured Chris Lambert on scene in Wasna, where a suspicious shoe was located by homeowners. So he went out there to see the area. The podcast also mentions psychics and their visions of where Kristin could be found. Here's an illustration here of one of what the psychics saw. I'm also researching and keeping current on any clues that may help locate Kristin. Here's another example of a concerned citizen searching for Kristin. This was back in 2014, even before the trial. Let's hear from one of my favorite creators, Kendall Ray, as she has covered this case a few times.
The Flores family's property could be searched again now because they had to prove that Dennis had a reason for being out there. And luckily, the lawyers were able to negotiate the terms of the search without the police department being involved. So in March of 2007, a prominent ground-penetrating radar expert was brought in to search their property, but he couldn't get a reading on those planter boxes or the newly built garage because he couldn't search the area where the cadaver dog had picked up a scent. He was allowed to look at the rest of the yard, but not that area specifically, which is obviously very frustrating. An excavation crew was able to dig into this spot and take some of the concrete out and test it, and somehow they ruled out that this was a potential burial spot. But this crew was not actually allowed to dig into the planter, which is where she most likely would be. During all this time, the Smart family was so frustrated, but they never gave up hope. Kristin was legally declared dead in May of 2002. And her family was starting to get worried that people were forgetting about her. There was just a lot less media going on. People weren't talking about her as much. In the years following, they asked for donations from the public to keep billboards up in the area, which can be really expensive, but it can really keep someone's name out there, which is just so valuable. In 2011, everything changed. There was a newly elected sheriff named Ian Parkinson who took over the case and ordered a complete, full review of all the evidence. He claimed that he was dedicated to finding answers for the Smart family, and so they felt hopeful for the first time in a while. But things moved painfully slowly. I mean, wow. It wasn't until September 6th, 2016 that the sheriff's department announced that they were investigating a new lead. They had launched another search of the campus with cadaver dogs and earth movers this time. time. So this was going to be a big deal. I actually remember this happening. They spent 4 days excavating these areas around the campus, and the case was finally starting to make progress for the first time in 20 years. And that's when I first heard about it, was because of that progress. And just from what I researched about it, I felt like things were going to move a lot faster. It seemed like there was a lot of evidence on Paul. I mean, that's definitely the takeaway I got from it when I covered it years ago. And when this search was going on, it seemed like there was just a renewed sense of urgency to actually figure out what had really happened to Kristin. Then in 2019, something huge happened for the case from someone not expected. Chris Lambert, he's a musician
slash podcaster slash hero. And of course, they went on to collect even more evidence.
The Flores family trucks that they had tried to get rid of, the Nissan and the Ford Ranger. So we don't know what could have been possibly found in the trucks at this point. And then in February, police executed 4 search warrants in California and Washington state at the homes of Paul, Ruben, Susan, and his sister, Ermelinda. And we don't know exactly what was found, but they did say items of interest were found. Then that April, some new evidence, which we don't know exactly what it is. There's still a lot we don't know at this point. But this new evidence led to a second search warrant of Paul's home in San Pedro, California. And investigators said that they were looking for specific items of evidence. And during this search, they ended up bringing a bunch of electronic devices into evidence, including cell phone towers, cell phones, and other electronic devices, some of them decades old. And they actually took Paul into custody this time, but he was released right after. Then, recently, in March of 2021, a search warrant was issued for Ruben's home, and investigators used cadaver dogs and ground-penetrating radar to search the whole property. And they also took one of his cars, a Volkswagen, in as evidence as well. As of right now, not a lot of information has been released to the public at all, especially about what they have found. And that's all for a reason, hopefully. But finally, I guess they had enough to make arrests in the case. On April 13th, 2021, police arrested now 44-year-old Paul Flores and his 80-year-old father, Ruben Flores, at each of their homes. And this was super exciting to see this finally happen after all this time. Paul was charged with first-degree murder and held without bail, finally.
Thanks, Kendall, for the recap. I like her style. And FYI, the bones located at the Cal Poly dig were determined to be animal bones. I came across this creator. He has a YouTube channel, and it's called JP's Mysteries and Adventures. I'd never heard of him before. It's a smaller channel, and best I can tell, he goes to the scenes and utilizes his drones to search and or document a scene. This November of 2022, he actually went out searching for Kristin. He didn't reveal the actual search location, but he does mention a 35-minute drive to the area. I'll insert some of the episode here. Feel free to go to his channel and watch the whole thing if you'd like. And some other interesting stuff. He covered the Julissa Fuentes case, which I've been following. So I'm glad I came across his channel. You'll notice he chose to start from Cal Poly versus Arroyo Grande.
Now, they have never found the body. You know, they searched all his properties. They got search warrants to search most of his properties throughout the years, but they never have found the body. Now, you know, I get contacted by several people, you know, who have theories, and, you know, they kind of tell me, like, what they think and where they could have gone. So they're saying that, you know, Paul Flores could have known the hiking trails around the area. So I did find one hiking trail, and that area seemed, from, you know, what this person told me, that she could have been, like, dumped, because I don't think, you know, at 2 a.m, you know, say he killed her and did something to her, he probably, you know, and I'm going to show you guys the footage of the dorms. He probably just dragged her to the parking lot, you know, put her in his car, and then drove off. Now, I don't think he would drive to his house because he's trying to avoid being seen. Like, why would he be seen, you know, in the houses? Despite the fact that it's 2 a.m, he's, you know, you can't just assume that everybody's asleep. So, he probably just took her to the nearest area where he knew, which, you know, most of these college students, you know, they go hiking and stuff. So he probably knew, like, a place where, it'd be kind of lonely, you know. So that's where I did my search. You know, I went to around this hiking trail, and I flew the drone around, and you guys will see. Well, you guys already saw some of the footage. Yeah, I don't know what that weird thing was on the rock. I don't know. Can a body like imprint itself on a rock? Because that looks like an imprint, but it also looks like it kind of ate away at the rock. So I'm not sure if the acid from the body could do that. So I don't know. You guys could tell me that. But anyhow, yeah. So I searched the area, and you guys will see the footage here, and the road too. The road that leads over there too. So it took me about 35, a little more than 35 minutes to get up to this area. So you gotta think, like, if he took her body somewhere, it couldn't have been too far, because he has to come back and kind of show himself, you know, even though not a lot of people saw him, because it was I believe it was Memorial Day weekend, so his roommate wasn't there. And yeah, I figured, even though his roommate wasn't there, he was probably thinking, well, you know, somebody's gonna end up seeing me in the morning, you know, when the sun comes out, so I better hurry up and do something to her, you know, get rid of her. So I don't really see him going to the house, you know, and risking the fact that a neighbor might see him, you know, pulling something out of his car, or like a person out of his car, you know, somebody walking or something, or going to work early in the morning. So I think he just took her to one of these lonely trails, lonely roads, you know, that lead to these trails, and probably just dumped her out there. But, you know, I know they did searches around the campus. And I think the nearest dump too, one of the trash dumps around there, I think they went to go look for it, but I got a feeling he probably went, you know, a little ways away. You know, it doesn't take too long. It took me 35 minutes to get to the trail, but most of this area, and you guys will see it on the footage, like it's pretty lonely, especially at nighttime. I'm sure it's like really dark. So he probably, you know, took her, dumped her out, and then in 35 minutes, so if he takes her body out, you know, goes a little ways into the brush, you know, or the trees, or you know, something. It'd probably take him another 30 minutes, and then another 30 minutes back. So he's probably gone 2 hours, 3 hours. He's back before, you know, 5:36, before the sun is coming up. You know, people are still barely waking up, so, you know, almost like he has his alibi, even though nobody really saw him. So, you know, so that's the search I did. You know, I'm still going to go out there. I didn't find her, but I did see some weird stuff, and you guys will see it on the footage. So check it out. Thanks for watching.
His search did remind me that Kristin could actually be dumped somewhere deep off one of many hiking trails in the county, knowing that after 26 years she is reduced to bones, and I hate saying that, but we want to get our mind around what we're looking for. And of course, in that condition, it makes it easier for them to relocate her remains and hide her. I remember towards the beginning of the search for Kristin, I always felt suspicious of the areas that Reuben had access to. He worked in the field for a phone company and was said to have exclusive access to properties in other fenced areas. I wish I knew more about those regions. I know he wouldn't still have keys or access, but he'd definitely have knowledge of maybe locations the rest of us wouldn't travel to or think about. I want to look for her so bad, but where do you begin? Like I said before, do you guys have any ideas? I firmly believe in the talents and power of citizen sleuths. Chris Lambert is a perfect example of how that can work. And there have been other cases too over the years where citizen sleuths have helped solve cases. Side note, there's also been some where people cause a lot of extra problems with cases, especially lately, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. All right, so it's the next day, and after sleeping on it, and by the way, I do run these cases through my head throughout the night. It's one of the things that keeps me up for sure. I was thinking about Highway 227, which connects San Luis Obispo and Arroyo Grande. It's windy, wooded, rural, I hate that word, rugged and steep. If someone tossed something off the edge along the way, how could anyone ever even find it on the slope there? Also, we went to Oso Flaco Lake not too long ago, and unfortunately one of Bobby's fishing poles fell into the water, never to be seen again. Why never to be seen again? Because the water is pure green, covered in algae, bird poop everywhere. You could probably get very sick if you dared go in there, which nobody would. So I think of places like that, those type of locations where she could have been tossed into water. You can see in the photographs the green algae and the reeds and the tules and what it looks like at that particular lake. There's endless locations in this county similar to these, other places where she could be thrown in the water. Adding to that feeling of, where would you begin? Everywhere we go, we look. When we're hiking, we're fishing, exploring, just plain walking, driving down the road. We've always got Kristin on our mind. It's highly unlikely we'll be the ones to find her, but you never know. And we'll never stop looking. So if any of you sleuths out there have any ideas, please pass them on to me. I'm willing to go check it out. I'll even document it on the channel here. And I'm ending each episode now with hashtag find Kristin Smart.
If I can't keep my head held high enough, I'll just speak love and watch the smiles come.
Thanks for
Bring
watching.
my spirits up.
Don't forget to stop and smell the flowers.
There's some shit I like